Good afternoon, everybody. Great pleasure and privilege to be in Bangladesh. This is my third visit here. First was in 2013-14. 13, second was 14, and now. Over the years, I couldn't understand why someone would be so hostile to Dr. Professor Muhammad Yunus. You know who I'm referring to. And I kept asking people, why is she so... he's not a political rival. Why is he all like persecuting him? Finding ways to... So I never understood really. Anyway, Professor Muhammad Yunus is probably, I would say, the most recognized, respected, non-political personality around the world. I travel all over the world. In the last many years, I've been to 135 countries. And of course, it would be an exaggeration to say everywhere I talk about Dr. Yunus here, but everywhere in the midst of some conversations, whether in a lecture, in a forum, microcredit comes up, issue of extreme poverty is discussed, and inevitably Professor Muhammad Yunus is. And he's solicited by all leaders, by movie stars, everyone. So he's an icon for any country, and very humble. When he first arrived in Timor-Leste in 2004, I was foreign minister. I was at the airport, and then I saw him coming down the plane, and very humble, not ostensibly dressed, very simple, and the reason he came there was at my plea. I asked, please to come and help us fighting extreme poverty, and setting up a microcredit for the poor. And but obviously, before he was already before he came, he is a loyal assistant. Lamir Morshed had been to Timor in 2000, even before our independence, to try to set up microcredit, to try to create an economy, empower local women. That was from day one my concern. Even though I was foreign minister, people would say, what the foreign minister is doing with microcredit. Like some genius in my country, in the parliament, criticized me for doing all these rural activities. And I respond, I say, yeah, in the Constitution, in the written Constitution doesn't say that the president, in our system, we have a semi-presidential system where the president has some significant powers, and some governments in my country, sometimes they don't like the president, and vice versa. But the president has to know how to develop relations with, particularly with the executive, and with the parliament, with the society. And I'm on and off, sometimes often criticizing the parliament for spending too much money on programs, activities that supposedly belong to the government. Like in my office, I have a women economic empowerment unit where we provide some basic knowledge, training, and I warn my staff, please don't come to me with academic studies about root causes of poverty. Something I hate is organizations, including UN, instead of delivering funding to empower women to do something, they come up with studies. And the UN even has a rapporteur on extreme poverty. So the rapporteur will go to countries and to try to tell us about root causes of poverty in our respective countries. I get very annoyed. And so I answered the members of parliament, well, the Constitution might say this and that, but my conscience says this and that as well. My conscience says as long as I can help someone, even one single person, I will help. Yes, I managed to use money from the presidency, but I also mobilize other resources. And in a country like ours, Timor-Leste, where there is still widespread poverty and where the government faces numerous challenges, priorities, everything is considered priority. I always stopped my role in my first presidency and today as contributing to alleviate poverty, to facilitate the work of the government, to create conditions of peace so the government can govern peacefully. That was my philosophy, my first term in office, and now second term. One responsibility of the president is to contribute through dialogue, through close contact with the communities, with the youth, to create conditions of peace, of stability, so the government can govern. Few months ago, I was, like many people around the world, was struck by the news of the popular movement here that changed the government, and then Professor Muhammad Yunus was brought into office by this popular movement. I have to say, looking at your experience, superficially, I'm not an expert, and it is fascinating. I think it's one of the most interesting movements. Remind me a bit of the French Revolution. Because who fought the French Revolution? Well, young people, youth, in the streets, in Bastille, in the streets of the then Paris, and there were many people who had no government experience at all during the time of the French Revolution. And God, they make, the French Revolution, started, brought down the monarchy, the French monarchy, and they created, the conditions for universal human rights principles accepted, adopted today all over the world. And these were young people. And so what came to my mind was actually a similarity with the French Revolution. And you then call on someone who has an extraordinary track record, what you are fighting for, what you are demanding, is what Muhammad Yunus has been doing all his adult life. So you cannot find someone better to govern a country than that, because he didn't write only books. Yeah, if someone write 10 books about microcredit, 10 books about economics of poverty, well, that's fine. He wrote 10 books, but no practical involvement. No, Muhammad Yunus changed the lives of millions in Bangladesh and elsewhere. I mean, how microcredit became all over the world, even in rich countries like the United States. Like Arkansas, in the land of Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, Muhammad Yunus has many, many fans. So between him and the people around him and yourself, you are creating, making history. And who knows, Bangladesh will be one day, soon, I hope, a country, an oasis of social justice, of equity, equality, of inclusion, of embracing everyone, a model envy in the world, because you have this chance. What is leadership is all about? You know, what is required of a leader? What are the elements that made a leader successful? I'm not saying, I'm a successful leader so when some people want to write my biography, at least I tell them, listen, I don't care whether you write it or not. Do I want to remember when I'm gone? Yeah, I don't care either. Whatever people think of me or don't think, who cares? I will be dead already anyway, so I wouldn't know. And so there is someone, an Australian author, is writing my biography. It's not official biography because I'm not into official biographies, because you have to be really, absolutely honest, 100% immaculately honest, to have your autobiography that's really honest. It requires a lot of courage and honesty. So no autobiography. So my biography is not official one. It's been written by this gentleman in Australia. He even got a Fulbright scholarship to do it. He's now finishing volume 1. I told him, do you? He said, volume 1 will be published next year. Then I said, listen, do you think people will care? They will want to read 2 volumes of my biography. And so when he said, yes, he said, a publisher in the US, very interested. So I don't really, but over the years I study about leadership. There are ample case studies. And I always have my own, based on experience, based on what you see. Well, of course, some leaders, they are born leaders. They are born with these qualities. As a child, you can watch a child. That child, God, he's the leader of all the other kids in the neighborhood, in the school. You talk with children and say, wow, very smart, this kid. And then they develop. But it is, you cannot really have a school of leaders in the sense, make everyone into a leader. My observation over the years, Xanana Guzmão, who is now our Prime Minister, who led the struggle for 17 years in the mountains, he led the underground, he led the political side, but also the armed struggle, then in prison. I watched him way back when I was a teenager. I said, no, he was a leader. And another one called Nicolau Lobato, way back in elementary school. His father was my godfather, and they were so many, 14 brothers and sisters. And he was much older. And when I was playing with other kids, including his younger brothers, every time Nicolau shows up, we all go silent and wait for him to say something, to do what. Yeah. Some people, they impress you by their the energy, whatever that person, but that one generally is charismatic, brilliant orators who inspire, mobilize people. A leader is one that really study. And today there's no lacking of information to equip the leader to study, because if you want to govern in 21st century, yeah, you have to be really someone who reads a lot, study a lot. But, so it is taken for granted that a leader is brilliant, highly educated, taken for granted that he or she is honest, really a servant of the people, to really serve the society, serve the country. But you have to also have a tremendous sense of compassion, humility. With humility, you know you don't know everything. With humility, you listen. With humility, you are accessible. And Muhammad Yunus is one such person that I got to learn to know about. And he has fans all over the world. Today I got a message on Instagram by an Indian friend who works with the UN. I don't mention his name because I don't know whether she wants to. She said, please get me a book autographed by Muhammad Yunus. And then it occurred to me, so I asked for the book. I said, I told, I think the minister was, I said, listen, by the way, get me two. I want one for myself. Because I forgot to ask him yesterday. And, but there are so many other people asking me for autograph book by Muhammad Yunus once they knew I was here. And, but we are living in very challenging times, very difficult times. The best possible plans that you have, that you dream, you imagine, you draft, approve, can fall apart. Fall apart because of inability to build political consensus, inability to reach out, to make everybody feel welcome, to make everybody feel embraced. Because I keep telling some leaders in some countries, and it's just incredible how some countries that multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religion, there is sometimes insensitivity towards people of other religions or faith or ethnicity. And this, it's not always the ethnic majority that is in power. Like look at Syria. For a long, long time, the Alawites minority was in power. But then when the minority is in power, instead of reaching out to the majority, they build an army of their own to suppress the majority. The same happened in Iraq and many other countries. In Eurasia, I don't mention the name of the country, in Eurasia. And sometimes leaders want the territory, but they don't want the people living in the territory. Well, one good example is Israel. Israel wants Gaza, wants West Bank, wants everything, and preferable without the nuisance of the people who have been living there for thousands of years. You know, Netanyahu would be so happy if the Palestinians in Gaza, West Bank, and people in Sinai simply evaporate. So it's a nuisance, for somebody. So instead of making the people feel that we are part of this greater country, diversity is not weakness. Diversity is not a problem. The more ethnicity, the more culture, the more religion you have in a country, wow, it's so great, such a diversity, so rich. Sometimes we fail to handle that, to deal with that. One country that has been so, not 100%, but so successful in dealing with its diversity is Indonesia. Indonesia has at least 500 languages, so 300 languages and 500 distinct ethnic groups. And to make things more complicated for them, they have 17,000 islands, of which 3,000 are inhabited. Of course, the Indonesians talk about 17,000 islands, but they are counting every rock. A few weeks ago, I was traveling with friends in Indonesia, throughout eastern Indonesia, the many islands. And so, look at some rock. I asked my host, is that rock one of those you count as an island? He said, yes. So that's why there is this impressive number, 17,000 islands, of which, but apparently only 3,000 are inhabited, which is a lot already anyway. So very difficult to govern like that. And yet, it's amazing the success. Almost everyone in that archipelago, he or she doesn't say, I'm a Dayak, I'm this, I'm that. No, I'm Indonesian. Then yes, they say, oh, I'm a Dayak, I'm from Kalimantan. I'm a Bugis from there. So there are some great success, but not 100%, like many others, but it really. So how to make everybody feel, and not only on the ethnic or religious basis, but also the social exclusion that sometimes happen. The poor in themselves do not cause conflicts. We know wars started by the more important people. War started by the bigger countries. But when there are generations of exclusion, the generations of oppression, of poverty, yes, that generate anger. And one day they rise up. Well, the conflict in Gaza, the eruption of the more recent wave of conflict goes back to 70 years of oppression The violence of October 7 didn't happen out of the blue. But there are other reasons besides the specific example of them. So not easy to manage all of this. And then living in 21st century with all the pressure that comes. Climate change, your best plans in agriculture might fail, like in our country. In the past, rain season begins November 1st or November 2nd, rain season begins. Like 1 in the afternoon, like 3 o'clock, rain begins. Now, it can, and usually in November, so now can be in December, can be in January. By the time it's harvest time, heavy rains come. And then you have a situation like the war in Ukraine. How the war overnight caused the skyrocketing of the price of basic commodities. So countries like Bangladesh, like ours, India, and so many in the periphery, we suffer the consequences of developments about which we had very little involvement. The desecration of Mother Nature by the earlier industrial powers, the rivalries for strategic resources, rivalry for influence. Sometimes it's only for influence, not even for resources. The conflict, the tensions today between China and the United States, it has a lot more to do with who is going to be the #1 economy. A country like the US that has been the #1 ruling the world, the planet for 100 years. Suddenly, China emerged from agrarian economy, poor, into a global financial power, a global technological power. That is, so, and all of this affect us. How to survive in the midst of all of this. I would prefer to say, I would say, for us, countries like Timor-Leste, and I believe Bangladesh, we prefer to see India today the #1, at least in that population in the world, India, China, US, growing in prosperity, because when they grow in prosperity, in peace, we all benefit from it. We don't want to see the United States and China going beyond competition. We want to see that they manage with civility, with wisdom, the dispute in South China Sea. We want to see China using wisdom, diplomacy, to negotiate with its neighbors over the dispute in South China Sea. And last but not least, I pay tribute to you, the youth of this country. Bangladesh is a bit like Timor-Leste in terms of youth population. 60% of Timorese are below age 30. 50% below age 20. And so very similar. I think probably the two most youngest population in the world, or at least in Asia, might be Timor-Leste. And we have made progress in the last 23 years. We started off with life expectancy below 60. It was even worse than that 40 years ago. in 2000, in 2000, before independence, life expectancy was below 60. Today, it's about 70. We had one PhD. Today, several hundred from some of the best universities around the world. Because our universities only last few years start introducing PhD program, and only one or two that does that. And we are rated in terms of media freedom, according to Reporters Without Borders, based in Brussels, their annual review of media freedom in the world. Timor-Leste rated in 2023 number 10, far better than France. France is 26 or 27. UK, 27 or 26, Germany, US is 40-something, Australia, 30-something. We are in the first 10 with Sweden, Finland, Denmark, I think Liechtenstein, Portugal is number 9. So, in terms of democracy, we are rated by The Economist and by the Freedom House in Washington, the best democracy in Southeast Asia. And yes, our elections have been always very peaceful and not free of corruption. Yeah. And I wouldn't say probably not even corruption. Is only some of our brilliant politicians always try to buy votes, and stupidly, like election time, bicycles start being delivered, and a buffalo or 2 buffaloes. And I know personally from some politicians, they're so upset. One of them, I don't mention name, he's now one of our ambassadors somewhere. He was so angry. He said, they asked me for 1 buffalo, I gave 1 buffalo. They came asking a 2nd buffalo, I gave 2nd buffalo. I said, even in my aldea, my village, I didn't get any votes. One other gentleman, an economist, and he studied in Europe. And he said, I'm not going ever to get involved again in Timor politics. I said, what happened? And he said, God, they asked me for a lot of money. I gave them money, and they guaranteed me the votes. And I didn't even get, he didn't even reach the threshold. I said, listen, I'm not sympathizing with you. You are so highly educated, and you managed to be cheated by illiterate barefoot people. So it is only to say that it is not like 100% clean, but it is not the poor people who cheat. When I say when the poor people cheat, I'm actually very happy about it. And only when leaders, the more powerful people cheat, then yes, there is damage. So that's the democracy. We don't have organized crime, partly because we generally are very disorganized people. I can tell you one example. There's one country in Southeast Asia where they do a forgery of dollar. Our currency is US dollar. And they do that forgery in that particular country. Our police a part of our police is actually quite good. They are the ones who track down where they print the dollar and smuggle them to Timor-Leste. And they told the police of that country. And they themselves, our police, went with the police of that country, Our police went to that particular country, and with camera on their heads, and they guided the police of that country right into the building where they were printing the money. Of course, initially, the police of that receiving country was so happy they wanted to have a press conference, but then they changed their mind. I said, no, we are not going to have a press conference. It would be so embarrassing. You need a police from Timor to come all the way here to guide us into it. But why that happened? So the organized crime in Southeast Asia do no longer trust any Timorese, because they made a mistake of getting a Timorese involved. So and the Timorese guy, totally idiot. He starts showing off. He starts talking about it, and then our police over here. So organized crime in Southeast Asia doesn't trust the Timorese, and they talk too much. They don't know how to keep secret. And, very unprofessional, our people in the crime. This is really funny, and I'm also being sarcastic, but I would say very dangerous, our country, in terms of, because the fragility of institutions, we can one day be overrun by organized crime more sophisticated in the region. So while we don't have a local, national organized crime, but it doesn't mean we are not targeted by organized crime, precisely because they know that we are vulnerable. So far, there have been attempts, but we haven't been able to fight back. So these are some of the challenges we face. Hopefully, before the end of this year, we will sign a major agreement with Australia to develop a great gas field in the Timor Sea, bringing the pipeline to our country, and that, yes, would give the chance for Timor-Leste government to invest much more in infrastructures, in education, so that our youth, 5, 10, 20 years from now, have a better situation. Because right now, we still have a high levels of poverty, of stunting, child malnutrition. So I hope that with this enhanced relationship with Bangladesh, with Professor Yunus, you can help us in a relatively short period of time eliminating extreme poverty. In July this year, I did 2 state visits. One to China, state visit, met with President Xi Jinping, and Vietnam. In both countries, my main focus was to appeal to China and Vietnam, please help us eliminating extreme poverty, child malnutrition, guarantee, help us in agriculture, to guarantee food security, better nutrition. I didn't ask for military cooperation. I just asked, I told Xi Jinping, you managed to free 1.4 billion people from extreme poverty. We are only 1.4 million. I said the same to Vietnam. Please help us. And both agree. And I would love to see this cooperation, strong cooperation with Bangladesh in this field. Fish farming, I know, very successful here in Bangladesh. Bangladesh is the 3rd largest rice producer in the world. What a success, from what it was before independence, at the time of independence, to what it is today. It's amazing. You have a good pharmaceutical industry, and heavy industry. The first time I came here, I was surprised. I went to visit an office where the company, they said they manufacture in Bangladesh pipelines. And that are that is high tech for oil and gas industry. So Bangladesh has come a long way, and with your understanding of what poverty is, your understanding of what it takes to address the challenges of poverty, I have a tremendous hope that with the current government and the future in the coming election that will happen, greater cooperation. I thank you for inviting me here for this forum. I'll be very happy to hear your comments, your questions, and so thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your inspiring remarks. Your contribution throughout your life, especially through dialogue, through close contacts with the community, and especially by engaging the youth, is really remarkable. Thank you very much indeed. Dear audience, we are now opening the floor for question and answer session. After that, we will have a experience sharing segment also from the Bangladeshi students before the closing remarks by our honorable advisor. Since we are running short of time, I will request the students to ask questions which should be brief, and please identify your name and the name of the institution. So who would like to ask the first question? Yes, please. Just give your name and the name of the institution.
Hello, sir. First of all, welcome to Bangladesh. Yesterday was our Independence Day, so happy Independence Day. Sorry. I'm a little bit nervous to talk to you. Sir, I'm from East West University, Shahjadi Fanana Kotha. I have just one question reminding from the day I knew that you were coming. I have heard that you have been, if I'm not wrong, you have been a youth leader or foreign minister at the age of 25. So we know that we all are like 24, 25, we all are teenage. So we all are trying to make our country more perfect, or we are fighting for it as we have fighted for our independence again. So it will be our great pleasure if you share some key point which can inspire us to be a leader like you and serve our country the way you have served since 25 years old till now.
Thank you, Ms. Shahjadi. I think we can take one or two more questions for this round. The second question, please. Yes.
Hello, sir. Welcome. This is Mehrab Shifat from Jahangirnagar University. I really appreciate and your visit toward us, and we are really honored by your visit. I really want to know your views and your perspective towards a thing that as a revolutionary, and we represent this revolutionary group, and we want to make a future Bangladesh that is held and that is led by the revolutionaries. But we see there is a representative of this interim government who was against our revolution, and we really deny and reject his representative of this interim government. He is the current president of this interim government. He is Shahabuddin Chuppu, and we really deny and we really harshly we deny and reject his this stand and position. So, as you were a representative of before the revolution of Purbo Timor, you was a representative of the government, and after the revolution, you led the revolution. So you really deserve this. But how this become this decision prolongs in our state, we don't want him anymore. And what is your perspective and thoughts about this decision? So this is my asking toward you.
Thank you. I think one more question from this side. Yes.
Hello everyone and good afternoon. My name is Anika Tahsin Hafsa. I am a student, final year student at Department of English, University of Dhaka. So my question is that you have said that you work for eradicating poverty and you are working for the climate vulnerable communities and especially poverty. So as you can see in our country, there are a lot of people living under the poverty line, and also more than 33% students cannot go to school because of poverty, because of climate vulnerability. Also, we have some problems in some coastal areas like poverty, climate vulnerability. So my question is that what can be the sustainable solution to reduce poverty? And what can be the youth engagement in that case? I want to have a loop questions with Apu that how we all the youth can engage ourselves in not just the government, in not just the democracy, in also the social development, in also reducing poverty.
Thank you very much for all your questions. Now may I invite Excellency to kindly respond. Yeah, the first question was like the key points to inspire to be a leader like you. And the second question was regarding the revolutionary aspect of the student movement. And the third question was the sustainable solution to reduce poverty and the engagement of youth in reducing poverty.
Well, I would say, without false modesty, but don't try to be like me, because I was very ordinary person. When I was a teenager, I ran into problems all the time. Once I ended up in jail for 30 days when I was in the conscript army, because I was drunk, interfere with and the guard in the army headquarters, and then during my jail time, the security guard was a very nice person. He would let me out 7 in the evening to go to parties in the neighborhood, and I would be back in the prison by 6 a.m. before a tough captain would inspect the prison, so I'll be back. And at age 19, I end up literally expelled from Timor-Leste by Portuguese authorities. I end up in Mozambique, age 19. And then I was allowed back after 2 years. And I was going to be expelled again in 74. A few months ago, a year ago, a Portuguese historian, he was researching in a big archive in Portugal, and then very famous archive center. And he emailed me, said, I found so many reports on you by the then Portuguese Secret Service called PIDE. And then he sent me one report. He said, there's too many. You have to hire someone to come and patiently looking for it. So this one particularly referring to an interview I gave to a newspaper in Australia in January 74. That was before the Portuguese Revolution. So anyway, I'm not a great, well, just try to be like Professor Muhammad Yunus and like to be like the inspiring young leaders here. In some ways, when I was 19, 20, 21, like many of my colleagues, Nicola Lovato, Shanana, we were like you today, because the movement in Timor in 74, we were all young. We were 19, 20, 24, 25 maximum, who started the independence struggle. If you look at the list of the cabinet, the first cabinet is December 75. The oldest was the president, who was maybe 33 or 34. Nicola Lovato was 28. Nicola Lovato, great leader, he was very impressive. So we were then like you, and unfortunately, age caught up with us as well. And the majority of those with me and others, we started the movement in 74, even before, officially, formally 74, but we started before as the informal discussion group. Vast majority died during the struggle. The toll, the casualties were enormous on the people. So when we arrived at independence in 2002, you look at the leadership, in 2002, only 6 or 7 people from the 75 generation. They died one by one. Some great people, some very smart youth. So hopefully that yours is much more peaceful, that you all finish your studies, and you have this beautiful time in history of Bangladesh. You have this great leader with 40 years of track record, maybe more than 40 years, because Yunus is 80 something, so 50 years of track record. It's there for anyone to read, to see, and I would say probably you have an army that is supporting it. Because like in Indonesia, I have said, little recognition of the role played by the army, allowed by the army. When time came to cut loose the link with the past dictatorship, they did. So they supported the so-called reformasi in Indonesia, because the president at the time in Indonesia, very weak, good man, but very weak, B.J. Habibie. He was very much a technocrat, not a politician. More than 20 years study in Germany, PhD in aeronautics engineer. Then he came back to Indonesia, called by the then president of Indonesia, Suharto. He was made Minister of Science and Technology, and then later Vice President. The financial crisis in Indonesia happened, student rebellion, primarily led by students in 98, 99, Suharto resigned, and Habibie took over. So I say weak in the sense, he was vice president, he was not powerful, he has no political base, no political party really. But with courage, he pushed the reform and pushed the negotiations to end the conflict in Timor-Leste. The army could have said, but there was instability, there was violence in Kalimantan, in Ambon, in Jakarta. The army could have declared martial law and end the negotiations for a transition of independence in Timor and end the attempts at the reform movement in Indonesia. And over the years, recently I said publicly, one of my regrets in life is that I should have nominated the president, while in life, President B.J. Habibi, for the Nobel Peace Prize. If anyone deserves it, it's Habibi. I don't know why the hell it never occurred to me, you know. But recently I nominated the two largest Muslim groups in Indonesia. One is called Nadatul Ulama, the other one Muhammadiyah. Between the two, they have more than 100 million members. I nominated them for the Human Fraternity Award. It's an award created in Abu Dhabi, but with the Pope and the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Cairo. I was jury in 2021, 22. But then when I left as jury, I nominated Muhammadiyah and Nadatul, and they won the prize. I was there for them receiving the prize in Abu Dhabi in February this year actually. And I nominated them for the Nobel Peace Prize. So far, no luck. Nominated them for the Houphouët-Boigny, the UNESCO Peace Prize. Why? Because thanks to these two organizations, that Indonesia remains a secular, very tolerant, majority Muslim country. But I fail in terms of B.J. Habibi, and not enough recognition of the Indonesian army, TNI, how they change. It's amazing, the transformation. You don't hear them talk politics. Very professional in the barracks. So you have in Bangladesh, you have a very peaceful situation, generally speaking. You have an army that did correctly what they did in the midst of the chaos a few months ago. And they stay out of politics, and they're watching. And who knows? The Bangladesh army could be, together with the president, the mediators. Whenever there are conflicts, political conflict, they are the ones who end up mediating between the political faction. And they are the ones who might help bringing about to consensus, political consensus on the reform. It is a great opportunity for the Bangladeshi army to be part of this movement in history that very unique in the world. Some of the reforms that I hear talk about, that term limit to prime ministers, absolutely correct. You know, in Europe, and that's one of the misleading about Europe. Heads of state in Europe, mostly very little power. The president of Germany, Austria, Italy have less power than the president in Timor-Leste. And yet, in Europe, they impose term limit to the president. Well, no power. But no limit to the chancellor, to the prime minister, who has ample powers. And then the Europeans, misled and imposed on the Africans when they began the democracy fever in Africa in the 80s, imposed presidents like in Europe, presidents in Africa cannot have served more than 2 terms. But the presidents in Africa are executive presidents, like Indonesia, like Philippines, like the US, like the chancellor in Europe. So the executive president in Africa, which has executive authority cannot have more than 2 terms in it. But the prime minister and so on in Europe, yeah, they can be elected and re-elected indefinitely. So imposing a term limit to executive branch, to a prime minister, I think it is the more correct way to prevent power corrupting. So I hear this possible part of it, yeah. And I hear the calendar for end of 2025 or 26, the election. I think that's very reasonable. You have a unique chance. You have a great man leading this transition, Muhammad Yunus. Second, you have a great opportunity to be very prudent, go slow for everybody, to come up with the best possible constitution, a model for Asia, for the rest of the world. And the other question was?
How to engage youth in poverty reduction?
But
How to engage the youth for poverty reduction?
yeah. Well, first, responsibility of the youth. Your first responsibility is to study. We hear all the time, youth and development, youth and development. Well, they are studying. It's a bit, sometimes we hear all these NGOs, the UN come with all these slogans, youth and development. Well, yeah, they are studying. They are contributing to development by studying. And so that you have everybody in Bangladesh is summa cum laude in whatever you do. Be the best. And not to be study to be the best. But yes, in free time, in whatever, so much that the youth can do. I have proposed to our Prime Minister in my country, get a youth work program throughout the country to do tree planting, garbage collection, garbage recycling, because now more and more technology for all of that. We have already some doing right now. Youth for civic activities, working in their own neighborhoods to do flower planting, fruit planting, sports activities, and all of that. So, and pay them $3, $5 a day to do the work, or maybe more. Now we have more resources. So that's the only, because, and my answer to a question is that, realistically, until age 18, 17, you are studying at elementary, at secondary school. Then university, the final chapter of your student life is, I have spoken at many commencements around the world. One commencement I did was in Boston, at one of the 3 universities called University of Massachusetts. When I arrived there, I was told by the Vice Chancellor, 8,000 people there in a beautiful open area. I was very pleased to see the Timor flag and the American flag together in that huge 3,000 students, the rest were family. I was asked to talk. And I talk about the example of 2 teachers. One school teacher from Colombia. I'm from Timor-Leste, and I talk about a school teacher in Colombia. I read about his story in the New York Times front page many years ago. For 10 years, he worked for free, and he created a library, a mobile library, the mobile library became known as Biblioburro, library on donkey. So we had two donkeys, one called Alpha, the other one called Beto, Alpha Beto. And he started a mobile library because he said he did a survey in the neighborhood, very isolated in Colombia, what people wanted most. They said they wanted to read. In 2010, when my first presidency, 2010, I invited him to Timor-Leste. So in my speech in Boston, I talk about that. And I talk about a Timorese teacher, woman, in a remote village that where I met her. Every day she walked 1 hour, 2 hours back and forth to go to the public school. After the public school, he climbed up the mountains, 3 hours up, 3 hours down, to teach in her native village. These are the heroes. And I always, every year, I honor teachers, because in many developing countries, I don't know about Bangladesh, we don't respect enough our teachers. They earn very miserable salaries in my country. And it has improved over the years, but so be advocates of teachers. In Finland, when you ask the people, public, what profession they respect most, number one, teachers. Great it would be the country, the society that number one they respect most are the teachers, because teachers earn that respect. And that's very, very important detail. And you provide every facility to them. So, love, respect the teacher.